All right, what up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I got Dan from Flux on the line with us today. So we're gonna do an interview. We're gonna dive a little bit deeper into Flux and explore what Flux brings to the table. I'm super excited. You guys know me. I just put out a video on this product the other day and I'm honored to have Dan on the show. So how you doing, buddy?
Ryan, I'm doing fantastic. And I'll tell you, I was actually in your comments the other when this was premiering, just kind of checking it out. What an excellent video you did. And you really hit a lot of the pieces about Flux that we like to share. So well done on the content. And I know the community itself, the Flux community, loved it big time. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, man. Yeah, there's so many new projects that I have a hard time keeping up. So sometimes when I find one like Flux that I'm really excited about and I try to do my best. But I always feel like just bringing you guys onto the show is kind of the best way to really showcase your guys' products. So I'm honored to have you on the show, man. Thank you for coming out.
Awesome. Yes, thank you.
So what do you want to dive into first?
Well, I think the best thing to do is I would say that your audience probably reaches a different level, individuals who may know about Flux but may not know about the ecosystem. And I think you brought this up in your conversation the other day. You said Flux is a bit more than just a product. It's more than just a cryptocurrency. It's an ecosystem, holistic ecosystem, and it kind of takes those pieces into play. So I thought it would be kind of cool just to give a real quick overview of the projects that we're working on Flux. And then what we could do is kind of delve into each one of those as we go. Most individuals know Flux cryptocurrency, right? So we were born in 2018 in the fires of post 2017, right? So we were actually born into a bear market right around that time, and we came into the world in existence as Zcash. Zcash was a fork of Zcash initially, but we knew that we wanted to do something bigger and more robust than just a standard privacy asset. We didn't want to just be a coin. We wanted to be something much, much more. And right about that time, I had some personal experiences in my life where I lost some Bitcoin, and it very painful. And I dare not put that number into the calculator because it's not fun. But I will say this, that gave the birth. The team came together. We said, what do we want to look on doing? The very first thing we wanted to do was build the best multi-asset platform out there. We wanted it to be secure. We wanted it to be mobile. We wanted it to be easy to use. We want to have a high level of simplicity so that normal users, the new folks that are coming into the space, that they could get it, they could understand it, they could use it, and they could hold their own assets, which was huge. Because keep in mind, 2018, Mt. Gox and some of these other exchange hacks were seriously in our mind at that time too. And we knew self-custody was going to be huge.
I went down on the Mt. Gox one, only a couple Bitcoin, but nowadays that couple Bitcoin's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was damn painful, man. I tell you, there was a lot of people that lost. I fortunately had figured out enough about wallets that at that particular point in time, I was able to save some of my Bitcoin, but I did lose some. So in the end, it gave birth to Zelcore, and we realized we want to do it. The cool thing about Zelcore is we built it from the ground up. We got input from our community. We got input from other people. We looked at what conventional thought process was with, maybe TD Ameritrade or these other platforms. And we said, how do we get this to feel like a Robinhood? To feel like something that's easy to use, fairly simplistic, and people will hold their own assets. And Zelcore was that. We use a unique, and I know you brought this up in your conversation the other night, we use a unique password and username. Conventionally, people that come into the space are like, I don't feel like that's secure, but it's actually way more secure, because what it does is it takes your very unique username and your very unique password, and it hashes that and encrypts that. So that is actually like a private key. Every time you log onto your platform, it's a private key. And the cool thing about it is it never touches a server. It is all done locally on your PC, locally on your device. There's no second party server that gets your information.
No way.
It's funny because, we get people that say, from compliance, they're like, okay, what data do you hold? We don't hold anything. There's no mystery server out there that has our stuff. It's all held by the end users, on their device locally. It does have a little bit of complexity with that, because if you don't go through the process and set up your password retrieval and you forget either your username or your password, you're out of luck. It is important, and that's why we have multiple warnings telling people, hey, make sure you write this stuff down, put it in a safe, take it to your safety deposit box, do whatever you got to do, because this is your private key to enter this wallet. Now, the other thing that's good is once you're in the wallet, you can export individual private keys and you can back them up, which Everybody should do that. That is the number one most important thing. If I could tell anybody anything, back up your keys and be your own custodians of the asset. So
100%.
That's a little bit about Zelcore. We continue to keep developing out. We just added Apple Pay. We want to make it super convenient for people to buy crypto and instantly custody it. That's a big deal because the way that it works now.
That's freaking huge. Sorry, I'm too excited. I'm cutting you off.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's very early on with the product inside Zelcore called Eve. And Eve is basically your personal crypto assistant. And we want to make everything about 2 to 3 clicks. We want you to be able to come in and say, I hate to say it, but all these people that bought Shiba Inu and all this other if they have an impulsive buy that they want to take the position, they shouldn't have to run out to a centralized exchange, go through the whole process, AML, KYC, all that kind of stuff. It's already stored in Zelcore. So you initiate it, you hit Apple Pay, boom, I just bought whatever asset I want. I want some Flux. Flux isn't available for Apple Pay yet, but it will be soon. Okay, that's phase 2. But again, one of the other things that we looked at were the traders, the hodlers, the people that wanted to run nodes, and we started to institute all of those things into the platform. So you can trade on basically every major exchange today, and we're getting ready to add 2 more, and one of them's a big one, right? One of them I've been waiting for since the beginning, and they weren't really forthcoming with the API stuff that we really needed to make it functional, but they finally came around. So, and I will tell you, it's Coinbase. So, that we're going to integrate Coinbase into Zelcore. So your Coinbase account, you'll be able to trade and execute all of your trades on Coinbase, and in one click, move that down to your Zelcore wallet. Basically,
That's
what we're doing,
dude. This is, in my opinion, this is something that the cryptocurrency world has needed from the very beginning, and is probably the most important, critical part that makes everything come together. I didn't know any of this about Flux. Yeah,
Flux makes this possible because people talk a lot about being decentralized, and in reality they're using AWS or other service providers. Flux and Zelcore put their money where their mouth is. We just literally transitioned the majority of the back end over to Flux, so we're actually running on our own decentralized computational network. It gives us uptime, it gives us scalability, on-demand scalability too. So if we see high influxes, like last night, for instance, with the Shiba Inu stuff and everything else, we saw a ridiculous amount of accounts come online because they were looking for somewhere to store their asset. Well, Zelcore, you can store it in Zelcore. And it got to the point where we started to see this little degradation of service, and our CTO says, okay, spawn it up on 5 more nodes. Boop, 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 boop. And there we go. And it was done. So, and then service came back on the way we wanted. So it offers instant scaling. And that's important because we're just a microcosm. And I'm getting into Flux a little bit. We're a microcosm. Zelcore is a microcosm of what decentralized computational networks really can be capable of doing. On-demand scaling across the world because it randomly picks the nodes to spawn on. So we said spawn it on 5 nodes. One could be in Europe, one could be in the States, one could be in Japan, and they just go online and they start to run and they start to function and work with it. So we have that redundancy, those failover pieces in place. If you lose a node, if a node goes down, something happens, somebody took their node down and the application was running on the node, it spawns another one immediately. So it says, hey, we lost a node, we're down to 4, we need a 5th. Boom, it's over here. These aren't proof of concepts. This is real shit. We've had business partners, KDA, Firo, Presearch, excellent projects that are continuing to bolster their decentralization by partnering with a project like us and running their infrastructure in a decentralized manner. So I got a little ahead of myself. So that was Zelcore, and then we kind of went into Flux and talked a little bit about Flux. Flux was born right around the same time. We do this thing in the team where we look at projects that have really good stuff, and then they have, there's some pieces to it. So I'm allowed to cuss, right?
Yeah, whatever, man. Tear it up.
there's pieces, right? So we looked at the master node concept, and we said, fundamentally, the master nodes are the next IEO, the next ICO, the next right? But there is this 1% sliver that would actually work in a scaled environment, but we had to put pieces together to make that work. So we created deterministic nodes. We assigned computational resources to that, and we assigned payouts to the node operators. So we have 2,300 plus nodes right now. I call them 2,300 decentralized systems administrators because it isn't a node where you one click, forget about it, and then you make unrealistic return. These guys are almost all very well educated in technology. They're very participatory in the process, and they update their nodes. There's always a constant, ebb and flow, and they're rewarded handsomely for it.
Can you buy these nodes, or?
When it comes to decentralization, I should have kind of put an asterisk at the beginning. Flux is about decentralization. It's about letting the community drive the project. And when we initially planned this out, we said, how can we do this? So we did lockups, we did tiers. We did, tier 1, which was, 10,000 flux, tier 2, which is, 25, and tier 3, which is 100,000 flux. Once you lock that up, you set up the VPS for your bare bones. Like, I run my own gear here. I also have a guy that runs my gear for me somewhere else. So you can do it at home on a Raspberry Pi. You can do it, because we have the lower tier, you can run on a Raspberry Pi, or you can run a high-end server. We have a lot of people that run their own servers because they don't want to pay the colo cost, or they don't want to put it on a VPS. It just makes more sense for them.
I have a 64 terabyte server here. I could turn that into is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you could absolutely. Yeah, as long as it meets the specs, because to bring a node online, it has to meet the criteria of the specs, and the specs are listed on our website. You can check it out. Eventually, those specs will probably get upped a little bit, because as our network grows, the requirements need to grow. We'll eventually look at what's called a node halvening. Works a lot like Bitcoin halvening. So if we have 2,200 nodes, the halvening will reduce the lockup requirements and basically double the network capacity. Mm-hmm. But each one of the nodes that has halved will have to have the same computational resources as the ones that were there before. So Dan has, I affectionately call them the biggest nodes, BAMFs, right? They've since changed the name, but I always refer to it as BAMFs because it is a BAMF fucker. Like it is, it kicks ass, man. That's 100,000 lockup. After the halvening, there'll be 2 nodes with increased computational resources. And I make a decision at that point in time, do I want to run 2 nodes now, or do I just want to run 1 node? And I would say, we have these parallel assets that we've been working on. I don't know if we'll have time to get into them or not, but essentially we've seen everybody in this soft scaling piece stand up more infrastructure. So we've grown, I want to say we were around 1,200, and we're well over 2,300 nodes now. So we've doubled in capacity and computational power over the past 3 or 4 months. Because, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's insane, man. When you're running one of those nodes, I've heard this from several different people that ran on what do they call them, on hard drives, where it destroyed, like the process would hurt the hard drive. Is that something that's kind of like wears down on a graphics card the same way it wears down on a...
It doesn't work like that with node structure. So essentially, when you stand a node up, you're given the opportunity to run additional resources on that node. If you say, I want to run KDA. So KDA is a 2-part piece. It's their chain web data, and it's also their full node. Then you would be rewarded in KDA, and you're dedicating your server. So you would be rewarded in Flux because you're providing the computational resources, and then you'd be rewarded in the partner project for helping support their partner. Okay. That's why these nodes are so lucrative and so different than anything else, because we've got a list of many partners that would like to do the same thing, and we're continuously scaling to allow them to come on board. So it's a very unique. There are other projects like this. They call the Web3. There's other projects that say they do things like us, but they don't. We're not a proof of concept. If I want to stand a website up today, I can use Flux to do it. If I want to host my Dockerized app, any Dockerized app created in any language, I can do that on Flux today. Over the next month, we're really going to showcase the power of that, because we're going to have what's called a 30 and 30, and we're going to tune up 30 dApps in 30 days. And we did it earlier in the year when we did our 20 and 20, and we're kicking it up a notch. We have a fork that's scheduled, and that fork will bring a lot of functions to the platform that will make it much easier for deployment. And we're going to launch, we call it Project Jetpack, which everybody, this is the first time you're hearing about it, but it's basically a full developer's toolkit. So that they can go in and they can launch that toolkit, and they can go through the process to, submit their applications and run them on Flux. So
Wow.
it's a lot of excitement, and we didn't even touch base on parallel assets and what they are, but I'll wait for your next question. But there are other facets to the ecosystem. We have Zell Labs, which is incubation acceleration model. We have Zell Pool, which is our own pool. We have Coin Request that's owned by Zellcore, which is for content developers like you. It's a Patreon competition. So you can set up a personal page and you can use Zellcore to receive payments and send requests back and forth. And there's more of these, but I could probably keep going. There's at least a couple more.
I was gonna say, man, we're gonna have to get you back on the show at least a couple of times, because I feel like we're not even gonna touch the surface of what Flux brings to the table. So wherever you want to go next, man, I'm all ears.
If you're up to it, then we'll talk about what parallel assets are, because I think that's probably the most important piece of all of this, and Fusion, which is the application that basically makes this happen.
Let's do it, man. I'm just going to grab a water, 1 sec.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Okay. So I think where parallel assets are very valuable, because when we identified, look, as a team, we tend not to run into things in the frothy FOMO stage. And when DeFi came around, there was a lot of pieces about DeFi that were frothy and FOMO-y and just kind of gross, right? These different food swaps, these different whatever. And we said, as we did with the deterministic nodes, we looked at it and we said, what part of this is actually of value? And we found the ability for liquidity pools, liquidity mining, all these different pieces. These are all the future of fintech, right? I believe in DeFi, that part of DeFi, not this part of DeFi.
Yep.
So what we did is we isolated that area. We said, this is where we want to build. This is where we want to develop on, right? We want to make something, a combination between Flux and Zellcore and this ecosystem work together to bring it around full circle. I think you even mentioned that in your last stream, as you said about the full circle ecosystem, bringing it back in. And we said, how do we scale our network vertically? And how do we grow our user base with rewarding the individuals that are already participating in the network? It's the philosophy of, it's better to spend your time and your attention on the employees you have, right, than go out and try to find new employees. And yeah, you might find a bunch of them, but they aren't going to be quality.
Yep.
And we have a very educated and engaged community. The parallel asset idea was born because I have, from the very beginning of me being in crypto, has said multi-chain interaction, interoperability, right, is the holy grail of blockchain. Mm-hmm. When blockchains can start to work together, right, and communicate, and you can start to tap into the functions that one blockchain would offer over another blockchain would offer, then it's powerful, right? And I said, well, how do we do this in a way that, we keep Flux as its, proof of work, fairly mined, fairly developed project? How do we keep this, but be able to branch into these interchain operabilities? And the idea is basically that we create assets on those parallel chains that then can come back to Flux through Fusion. So any coin that's held on the primary chain can then go to a secondary chain. And a perfect example of this is the recent listing with Bittrex. Bittrex listed Flux ETH. Why did they do that? Because it's super easy to do, because we already have a token that's been legally reviewed. Everybody's happy with it. It's tied to proof of work on the main chain. So if I buy 500 Flux ETH, all I do is go to Fusion, move it over, and now it's on the main chain. Fusion enables this process to happen. Uniquely, there's nobody else that does this that I've ever found. And if there is, I'd love to see it, because then I could compare. Because what it does is that the users within Zellcore themselves can move from asset to chain to chain. How's that impactful? Well, I recently some Flux Binance Smart Chain into a liquidity pool. I recently put KDA, which is a really hot project and I know you like as well. Mm-hmm. We were the very first ones to add an asset to Cadix. Our Flux KDA pairing was the very first liquidity pool, was the very first add to Cadix. Wow. And then since then, they've announced a bunch of changes, right? So we can be fast, we can be portable, we can be nimble, and we can be robust, because we're tapping into all the different parts of the ecosystem in a decentralized manner. And we're bringing that back through Zellcore, which allows us to maintain the main chain. And I'm sorry I'm talking so long, and I'll stop right now.
No, man, keep going.
Our idea is if we soft scale, we call it soft scaling. We snapshot the individuals who are running infrastructure or holding the asset. These are the people that are providing services. Whether it's staking for a service in Zelcore, you can stake 5,000 Zelcore and get Zelcore Plus, which is another part of the ecosystem we did talk about. You can provide nodes, right? A whole host of nodes. And you can also do it on an exchange. CoinMetro honors the staking process on their exchange. So if we awarded the people that were already in the ecosystem, they were going to do one of two things. They were going to take that and move it back to main chain, and they were going to develop another node, or they were going to take that and put it into liquidity pools and raise that liquidity model on the DeFi. So it was a gamble. And what we found is that it paid off highly because they did both. After these assets are available, we see the liquidity pools continue to grow. We see the node structure continue to grow. And I don't see it stopping because these guys are ravenous about the opportunities. And a matter of fact, we get suggestions every day where it's like, have you looked at? And it's like,
Yep.
Yeah, we promised 10, but there could be 50. You know what I mean? We don't know. I mean, someday. And that's all. And then one last thing on the end, all of this is in the era of decentralization, all of this is controlled through our XDAO. So the people that run the infrastructure are the ones making the decisions. It isn't us, the team, that makes those decisions. It's the individuals. We make everyday operational decisions. Like if we need an update, we're not going to go to the XDAO for that. We're going to do the things we're going to do, right? But large, major decisions, I'll give you a perfect for instance. We identified that we definitely needed to develop our marketing and PR arm. We had community members who were highly educated and developed in that area, and they submitted an XDAO request for 1 million flux, which ended up being quite a bit of money that they are using to develop the marketing plans. And they have presented marketing plans to us. They're continuing. So we took it to the XDAO and everybody voted, hell yes, let's do it. Makes sense, right? So that's what the foundation was created for.
That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. That is so freaking cool. Letting your community members help take you guys to the next level. That's genius. And rewarding them handsomely for it.
I tend not to diss other projects, but I'm going to have to talk about them, right? So where they kind of turn their back on their miners is going to be their demise, because those individuals mined and helped produce the attention to drive ETH to where it's at today. Those loyal individuals who had GPUs hashing in their basements or hashing in their garage or whatever, they're turning their backs on. And I think it's a very damaging. And we embrace that, you know. They don't fucking want you, but we do. Come work with us. You know what I mean? Flux is a miner-friendly, node-friendly, hodler-friendly, trader-friendly platform. We believe in decentralization, and we believe in growing it as a community. Now, the community's smart. We're not going to sit there and present to the community a Flux OS update or a hard fork. We're not going to do it. They're just not going to care about it. They trust that the team is doing the right intentions for the project. But when it gets super important, like that million flux, that's when the community steps in and they're very glad to help participate. And ultimately, it's the rule of the law. Whatever they say, that goes. I think it's probably the model that needs to be in many cryptos. The unfortunate part is a lot of people put a lot of emphasis in proof of stake, people that are gatekeepers and people that will hold your assets and determine. I mean, why the hell hasn't ETH been able to scale?
I couldn't agree. I mean, it's what I don't think that anybody else is talking about it, right? What happens? What happened to Bitcoin when all the miners went offline? When all that hash power went offline, right? What's gonna happen to ETH? And I get they're switching to proof of stake, but you're talking about freeing up assets that nobody's freed up, that people locked up 3 years ago, thinking it was only gonna be a 6 months or a year. You're talking about people that locked up ETH so long ago that they maybe do or don't want, but I assume most people want that asset freed up. And if ETH doesn't jump the second that transition happens, and then you're releasing how many of those 3090s you think are going to be out in circulation, won't that hurt Flux in a way? Won't that hurt the Flux miners because there's going to be such an overflow of mining equipment that it'll spread out and probably target good projects like yours? Would that bring...
No, I think it helps strengthen projects like ours because we've put a plan in place a long time ago, and thanks to ETH and them dragging their feet, we've been able to solidify it even more every day. I think projects like ours, and what you're kind of referring to is if more miners come in, network difficulty goes up,
Yes.
people get less flux. Well, that's a good thing. And Satoshi Nakamoto put that in, the white paper, because essentially what he wants to do is participating in the network, you'll receive less BTC, but the value will be worth more.
Mm-hmm.
And the of note that I want to share is every one of these pieces in the ecosystem, every single one, whether you're using Fusion or whether you're using Zelcore, or whether you're using Flux or whether you're using Flux OS or standing a node up, every one of them require Flux. So we have built an ecosystem that is dependent on the utility asset. It is the truest sense of the word, a utility asset.
That's genius, man. That's so freaking genius, because it brings the circle. It brings it full circle. You have people using it, so then you have miners earning more rewards. It's just smart, man. It's really, I can't believe I haven't heard about your project till recently.
Well, there's a reason for that. We as a team in 2018, 2019, and going into 2020, we all agreed that we didn't want to be a pump and dump. We didn't want to be one of these ones where, all of a sudden you have really good marketing and everything goes like this. So we were very involved with our community, and they call me Organic Dan, right? I always say, hey, organic's the best way to go, because organic, you're going to hold your highs. Your new lows will be new lows. You'll continue to kind of keep going in that direction. You'll add liquidity as you develop the project. You'll add demand as you develop the project. And the natural process of that is the price goes up, right? And it holds that. That's why Bitcoin is so awesome.
From a TA aspect, I pointed that out in my video. I legit saw that hold line in the charts that you guys had never been able to hold up there before. So I just fell in love with that market structure in your project instantly. And now I'm sitting here like, when does this interview end? Because I got to go buy some more Flux before everybody else finds out about this gem.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where we were very methodical, and we thought the process through and how we were going to approach. And, I always tell the community, then they say, hey, when are we going to do more marketing? Hey, when are we going to get on bigger exchanges? And hey, when are we going to do X, Y, and Z? And and I always tell them, when Binance. And I'm like, look, when Flux is ready, Binance won't matter. Mm-hmm. It won't matter. It will be a follower of the platform. And we're already starting to see this begin, right? We're already starting to see people that came, maybe they found ICP and they're like, they're jaded about getting dumped on, and they're like, I really believe in Web3, but these guys, their shit's not good, right? Oh, well, here's Flux. Or maybe they're coming in and finding Web3 for the very first time, and they're looking for projects in Web3. And I think that's a lot of the growth. And when you have a well-developed project like Flux, all it takes is hooking them. And I'll give you a perfect instance, and then we can, I don't know how much time we got left, but
all the time you want.
I'll give you a perfect for instance. We saw such an influx the past 2.5 weeks because we support KDA. Mm-hmm. And for the very first time, and I can't tell you how many people have reached out, DM, it's so exciting to see this happen, because they're like, I went to buy KDA, and I'm like, where do I hold this? And then I Google it, I look at the wallet, and I say, oh, it's Zelcore, and I download it, and I set it up, and I take my KDA, and I put it on. I'm like, where the has this been? That person is now a user, probably in perpetuity, as long as we keep developing the way that, that meets their needs. But when people come to Zelcore, you tend not to see them leave, because they realize the value of that. And then vicariously, while they're in Zelcore, they learn about Flux. So, a lot of people have said, why is it that KDA and Flux are kind of correlated in their process? Well, the reason being is because people that are coming into new projects, they're finding us, they're finding Zelcore, and they're vicariously finding Flux at the same time. I'm really excited, and congratulations to the KDA team and what they've done, because it's been very exciting to watch. And I'm a KDA holder too. I love the project, and they're not just a partner. They're one that I really do support.
Yeah, they're gonna be. They're like you guys. Like when I found KDA and I started looking into the project, I instantly fell in love once I realized what I was looking at, and that led me exactly how I ended up into Flux. And I just oh, here we go, another crypto wallet, right? I'll do this live with you guys. And I opened your guys' wallet, and I was just like, oh my God. Like, I'm not just saying this, guys. This is the best crypto wallet that I've ever seen. Like it now, and I can't wait to learn more about it. And really good, man. You guys can tell that you guys went above and beyond. You got news feeds in there. You got decentralized two-step authentication, which was amazing. I like that I didn't have to pull out a Google Authenticator to do it. Like it's so clean, and it's efficient, and it's fast.
That D2FA, that's stored on the blockchain. we utilize the blockchain for that. So there's no server sitting somewhere that has your two-factor authentication information. It's hard punched into the blockchain. And so that's essentially why when you open up a Zelcore wallet, you get a little flux, because it requires a transactional fee to punch it to the blockchain. And then every time you go in there, it calls to the blockchain and says, hey, what is this? And brings it back and says, there you go. It is hands down, decentralized two-factor authentication is the most unsung hero of the entire project. Fusion would be a close second, or maybe if it's at first or second, but people don't understand. Zelcore doesn't submit any information to servers, and their two-factor authentication doesn't rely on a third party to facilitate it. It relies on the blockchain. And that's huge. So our job and our mission for the next 6 months is to champion that outward and let people know. And a lot of times they're kind of like you. They just find it. They go in there and they're like, hey, this is a pretty damn good wallet. What's this T2FA? Oh, this is nice. I don't have to worry about Google. Okay, boom, set it up. They're not thinking of the fundamental power behind what it's actually doing. I always.
Not at all. Wow.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to tell you how awesome you guys are, so go ahead.
I always kid around and I use my wife, and she gets after me because I always use her as this example. My wife, when she goes to the ATM, she puts her money in, she puts her PIN in, she takes the cash out, and she leaves. She gives two shits about everything that happens behind the scenes, right? And I would say the majority of our end users, as we grow into a space and we get more adoption, people are coming in, and I mean, millennials and their kids are going to start really, delving into these things, and they're just going to expect it to be like it's always been. They want a username and password. They want something easy to remember. They understand the importance of keeping their private keys, right? Because we're going to educate them. You have to go through a tutorial to get into Zelcore. And then once you're in there, we're going to make it so you never have to leave. If you want to pay for something, you can use Apple Pay, comes out of your crypto. You can, buy, sell, trade, hold, invest. There's some things we're working on down the road where we want to get some investment pieces in there, some investment vehicles. And the other thing is we're going to expand it, Zelcore, outside the blockchain space, the crypto space, and we're going to start looking at standard financial systems. So what does that look like? It means that I can start to set myself up for tokenized securities and assets for self-custody. That's a big deal, and that's why NFTs, another one that, I don't like overall, but there's a sliver of what NFTs can mean, and we're going to develop around the NFT platforms as well. So if I'm at a party and I want to show my buddy my cypherpunk, I'll be able to do that. And if he wants to buy it, I can be able to send it right there. And the storage is in a decentralized platform, and it's called an infinity contract that runs on Flux. So I know that's a ton to take in.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've been very blessed to be working on this project. The team is amazing. It really is.
And what is your role? Sorry, I don't even know if we ever covered that.
I'm one of the co-founders. There's three co-founders of Flux. There's myself, Parker Honeyman, and Tadeusz Kamenta. Tadeusz, the Mad Trunk, they call him. He's a wonderful coder. He's the CTO. Parker Honeyman, who kind of takes care of the ops, and then I'm more just strategy and planning. So I'm the guy that comes up with a lot of really good ideas, and then they have to figure out how to implement it. So I get the good gig, right? I don't have the heavy lifting. I'm the idea. They call me the announcement guy. I'm the announcement guy, right?
You're doing a good job, man, for sure. I was excited that you guys joined in the live chat and everything. That's nice to see a community like that, man. I don't get that. I make videos on 100 projects, and very rare do I see the team in there. So thank you for showing up, man.
Yeah, I was glad to be there. We have a very vibrant community, and I would say there's probably not another project in the space where you can really have direct interaction with the founders. The majority of them, if I tried to get a hold of Vitalik, who I've met a couple times, right? If I tried to get a hold of him, it would be all but impossible, right? With Flux, and I'm sure as we continue to keep growing, this will get more challenging. So we'll do more AMAs, more involvement in pieces like that. Somebody can come into my Discord and ask me a question, and I'll be like, yeah, X, Y, we're looking at X, Y, and Z. Thanks for asking, right? Might not have a massive long conversation with you, but I will definitely respond to you. And that's the nice thing about this community is they are very vibrant and very well developed because we were tried in fire. We went through a bear market.
That's right.
These people are here. Yeah, it was ugly.
That was a rough couple of years, man. I know.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I mean, when you're tried in fire like that, you really, building in a bear cycle. I've said it, and I stand by this statement. the bull market that we're in or beginning, right? Most individuals think that this is going to be asset based. So they're going to, Bitcoin's going to run to $100,000, and maybe it does, right? Flux will be $5 or $10, and maybe it does, right? But the real super value is creating the infrastructure, developing the infrastructure, and creating partnerships with the legacy-based system. That's the key. I don't think the legacy system goes away. I am a cypherpunk at heart. I would like to see that. I'd like to see them end the Fed and all that kind of good stuff. But the reality of it is it's going to be a symbiotic world. We are going to have to work with large players in the space. And to do that, there's two key functions that need to happen. You have to have the platform, and you have to have the team to develop it. And when I say team, I'm not talking about the individual developers. I'm talking about this community. Mm-hmm. This community is the ones that will facilitate those pieces. So yeah, I mean, I'm really super excited to see what comes of it. So
I'm honored to be a part of the community, man. I'm looking forward to hopefully teaching people. That's my goal anyways, is to teach people how to take their crypto, use DeFi to not actually leverage trading, but use to leverage the assets you have to continue to make more money. That way you don't sell off your assets and then all of a sudden things pump up and you're FOMOing back in. Like, that's how you lose in crypto. The idea is to hold, but so many people are afraid to hold the bear market because we've always experienced such long bear markets, but I don't think people really realize you have to have been through a couple and they tell you everything's going to be different. And then all of a sudden this time it's not different, and you're like, yeah, okay. Like I was totally expecting us to be going right when Bitcoin broke up there. I sold all my Bitcoin at 62,500. I'm like, we're going down, guys. I see it. And we got down to 30 and I didn't even buy right back in at 30. I ended up waiting until we got back up to 37 that very, very last time before I was actually like, okay, I'm convinced. Like, I think this time's going to be different. I went down every other time. I'm not going down, not this time, but this time I actually got out and got some profits out at the peaks and was able to put those back in the bear, which I've never really been able to do before. I normally just down with the ship I go. So yeah, hopefully I can teach people. I
think this cycle is going to be different than others, and I'll tell you why. The adoption level has increased exponentially. I mean, just the users in Zelcore alone have just went ape, right? So there's more adoption. We've kind of reached critical mass in terms of adoption. I do believe there will be an impact, and I think the impact in the end will be a positive one for crypto and blockchain overall. I think you see these projects like Shiba Inu and all these meme coins. And what's going to happen is these individuals are going to get wrecked. They are. And they're going to be jaded when they do. And the projects that actually have developed, actually have built out a platform. And as I talked about earlier, that integration piece, they'll be the ones that are successful. They'll be the ones that end up playing the fiddle at the end, right? They're going to be super, super successful.
I literally just got done right before you got on here recording a video explaining the difference between a Shiba and a Cadena and a Cardano and what it looks like when you're building infrastructure on top of a layer 1 blockchain versus building a doghouse on top of a cat litter box.
Yep.
It's pretty. Everybody wants the Shiba, right? I mean, I was the very first YouTuber to actually make a video on Shiba and I didn't buy it because I laughed at it. I was texting the Cadena team yesterday. I go, man, I wish I would have found you guys and same with you. I wish I would have found Flux instead of Shiba because I actually would have bought it, Like, I looked at that coin and just kind of laughed and was like, okay, yeah, this isn't going anywhere, but, throw a bar tab at it. And I had 3 subscribers become millionaires because of it. So,
Well, I will tell you this. Are they really millionaires?
Yeah, I made sure they cashed out before it dumped
because I'll tell you, I think this is going to happen personally. And this is if I had my tinfoil hat, I'd put it on right now and, we'd have a real fun conversation. I think these projects have been developed, right, for a specific reason. And that is to attract retail investors and eventually dissipate. But the bigger piece to that is, in the United States and I think globally, they're looking for a way and a reason to regulate these assets. Right, they're looking for a way where it's a blatant security. It's not a utility asset. Doesn't have its own chain. I mean, the big news last night was that Shiba Inu came out and said, "Hey, we're going to make our own blockchain in 2 years." When it comes down to it, they'll say, "Hey, that doesn't work." And I think what's going to happen is as these retail investors start to be injured, and we've already seen a couple projects that have really injured people, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to name any names, but you can figure it out. They were in the top 5 and now they're in the top 30, right? They've been really injured and they're looking for a reason to really impose that regulation. So a lot of people say, Dan, are you worried about regulation? And I'm always like, well, no, I am ready for that, because Flux, with a legal review, both US and globally, is a utility asset. And we are about the only one, other than Bitcoin and a few others, that have that ranking. Like, that's a big deal for us.
That is
So
wait, say that again, because why do I hear so many people say that Bitcoin is deemed the only digital property? Wouldn't that make Flux a digital property then?
well, it works like this. Bitcoin is the grandfather, right? Zcash was a fork of Bitcoin. Okay. So inherently it transfers down to Zcash, right? Because the economic model was somewhat similar. There was just different features. We are a fork of Zcash. So if you look at the proof of work projects that have spun off of Bitcoin, what you're going to see is as long as they're not doing something like totally crazy, like going to a token or doing a token raise or some shit like that, you're going to see them grandfathered in. It's natural, right? And when we went through our first legal review in the States, it was like, this is a no-brainer. Yeah, you guys are just like Bitcoin. Sign off, boom. When we did our global legal review, same scenario. Yeah, this is decentralization at its finest. You guys are not a security in any way, shape, or form. So I would say, I wouldn't say we're a property necessarily. I think what we are is a utility-based asset, which is the whole reason why blockchain will grow and continue to keep growing, because those utility-based assets are not securities.
So what is the difference if a cryptocurrency, besides filing a lot of paperwork and expensive attorneys, can you explain a little bit about that for our viewers? Because everybody is asking me that, and I'm like, I'm not smart enough, guys. I apologize.
Tell me that again. Explain what do you want me to say?
When like you see these other projects that are proof of stake, and we already pretty much know that the government, they target proof of stake that covers like 90% of blockchain, right? Like of the crypto space nowadays. So it's smart for the government to target that, because the few like Flux and Bitcoin that actually made sure that they follow those steps, right, to become not a security. What does it mean if tomorrow they said that every proof of stake blockchain was a security? What is the difference because so many projects are like, don't say that. You cannot say those words. You cannot talk about our project if you're an influencer for us, because you can't say that this is an investment opportunity or everybody has to tiptoe around that word. I'm like, you guys are going to be deemed a freaking security. I don't care how you guys want to try to act like you didn't. There's no way there's not one video out there of you talking about making profit on this project, period.
Yeah, I would say this. I have a duck over here, right? And it's actually a platypus, right? But I tell everybody it's a duck. It has a bill, kind of looks like a duck, in the face. It's a duck, right? And everybody else is like, that's not a duck. You know what I mean? That is a platypus. Essentially, it's the same way with these proof of stake projects. You are a security. You launched a token. 100% of that, whether it's been distributed to VCs, whether it's been distributed, you are a fucking token, and you are a security. Factually. Now you can fluff it up. Now Ethereum they did their ICO. They developed a main chain, and they said, okay, we're going to start proof of work now. And they did exactly like a lot of people say, well, maybe they'll go after Ethereum because they did the ICO. No, the regulatory kind of overview that has been given to us is that if it is a ICO that develops a project with a main chain intention within a year, I think they're giving you kind of a grace period within a year, and you go to a main chain and you have it developed out the way that you're supposed to, that's what this is supposed to be. You can create a token as long as you're creating value, because these are securities. Shiba Inu is 100% a security, and people will get wrecked. If you bought it in the States and Coinbase listed it and the other stuff, they're going to have to answer to those things at some point. And I truly believe the reason why it hasn't been classified is because the states seem to be leading, or somewhat leading, the regulatory push, right? And they don't know the difference between the platforms. Like literally, they couldn't tell you what proof of work is versus proof of stake. And if you say proof of work is bad for the environment and proof of stake is not, they would buy that. They would go, oh, okay, well, that's the issue. But it's much deeper than that.
I think that they're also waiting because new technology is evolving, and they know that the second they go, hey, A, B, and C are a security, D, E, and F are a property, you're gonna see instantly that shift, and every new project's gonna revert. So I think that they're trying to like kind of sit back and like, okay, what new tech is going to evolve in the next, now that we're at that like evolution of crypto, right? So I almost feel like they're kind of dragging their feet because they want to make sure that they can cast that net as far as they can, but that's my tinfoil hat theory. And they're probably, obviously the collapse of the current financial crisis is is another
Well,
whole subject.
it sounds like we have a lot of fun. Maybe we'll have our tinfoil hats for next time. So
I think so.
I'm really happy that you brought me on the I always want to say podcast because I do podcasts too. But
Yep.
Thanks for bringing me on today and letting me kind of tell everybody about Flux. I think it's a super. It's just an amazing project, and I love it. And I'm not just saying that because I'm one of the co-founders. I'm saying it because I believe it. I don't work in any other projects anywhere else. This is my magnum opus, right?
Yep.
I want to hand this off to our kids someday and say, guys, we gave you a decentralized world. Use it. So That's kind of where I'm at.
Man, it's so nice being and thank you so much for coming on the show, because it's so nice I've kind of prided myself on my channel of never putting out any content on any garbage coins. Like when I made a video on Shiba, I was like, scam or epic opportunity. This is like something you throw a bar tab at. You're gonna go out with your boys, spend $100 on the weekend. Don't go out, stay home, throw it on something like Shiba. That's the only time I would ever put my money into a project like that. So I went out of my way to, and I feel like I'm finally catching it. I'm finally finding those new good projects like Flux before they're 10, 20, 50 billion market cap, because I think you guys are going to be there without a doubt. You'll be in the top 10, top 5 all day long. If not, just seeing how things shake out. I mean, that may have a couple of years. It's going to take work, but you guys are on the right track, and it's an honor to be associated with your project. And I look forward to being in the community for a long time, man. So,
all right, thank you, buddy.
One more request: if there's anybody in your community that I know you're probably so busy, I would love to do more of like a deep dive with some slides and presentations and explain more about the project. So if you could maybe put that ball in motion whenever you guys got time, I'll make time for you guys.
Absolutely, love to do it.
All right, thanks, Dan. Have a great day, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yep. All right, buddy.